I'm not coming out until around 7 o'clock. Yeah.
This is a sound check. Can you hear us?
Yes.
Yes.
I wanted to check Sam's Club tomorrow morning because last Saturday they had like a 4 or 5 pack that is bigger
Hello.
than the one I got.
Diane. Hello. Hello.
Okay.
Am I on the conference call? This is Jim Brewster. Yeah. Hello.
Hi, this is Michelle. Good morning. This is Lori Misgorski.
I probably won't come out today, maybe tomorrow.
Good morning, everybody, and a reminder to mute your phone if you're not talking because it will create a lot of echo.
Okay.
Catherine, are you in the boardroom?
Jeff, was that question for me?
No, for Catherine.
Hey guys, can you hear me? This is Jen.
Are you in the boardroom? Because there may be some people who are coming from the board showing up in person. Where are you physically located right now? Kat, I can't hear you. If you're talking, I can't hear you.
Jeff, can you hear me? This is Jim Brewster.
Hi, Jim.
Okay, thank you. I'm here.
Catherine's phone is silenced, but I was looking. Catherine, we can't hear you. Need to know where you guys physically are.
What does it look like?
Are you in the boardroom on the 5th floor? Can't hear.
Today, can you hear me now? Wait, am I muted?
I can hear you. Yeah, now I can hear you.
Okay, good. Thank you, sir. All of the board members are attending via Zoom today.
Okay, so where are you physically right now?
We are physically on the 5th floor in the conference room.
Oh, that's what all right, and then Jeff Devlin, Jen's having trouble with her phone. She can't. She was gonna attend in person, but I think she checked the 5th floor and didn't see anybody there. If we get her phone working, Jeff, that'd be great. Because she says there's nobody in the boardroom.
Okay, the door is open.
She may be in the boardroom on the flip side of the partition.
Oh, yeah, we're checking for her, Jeff.
Okay, thanks.
Woo.
I'm sorry, she left, but she's on the phone. She can hear us, but we can't hear her. So if we can do with them something. And that background, I don't think is coming from me. It's coming from Eric. Needs to silence their phone if you're not speaking. Jeff, you may have to force mute us.
Yep, I'm on it, Jeff.
I'm sorry.
I I'm watching the mutes, yes.
Okay, thanks. All right, well, let's call the meeting to order, first of all, and I apologize. I thought I'd be there in person, but my children and grandchildren from Florida moved in with me, and they objected to me coming to the meeting, so I couldn't go. I apologize. And I want to just welcome everybody. It's good to see everybody, at least those who are attending video. I can see you, and to hear from those who are attending by audio. Hopefully, next meeting will be in person. In any event, so the meeting's called to order, and we also obviously have to dispense with the Pledge of Allegiance. We should do a moment of silence for those in the nation who've passed it as a result of the coronavirus. Thank you. So first order of business is approval of the minutes of the May 29th regular meeting. May I have a motion, Jessica, for approval of those minutes?
Motion.
Jeff, may I intercede and announce that this meeting is being recorded?
Yeah. Oh, thank you. I'm sorry. You asked me to do that. I forgot. This meeting is being recorded. Please understand that. And then.
I'm sorry, motion made.
Yeah. Thank you, Jessica. Austin, would you second that motion?
I second.
All in
Second.
favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that's great. All right, with that, we'll move into the report of the Chief Executive Officer, Catherine.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Doing a sound check. Folks can hear me? Very, very good. Thank you, sir. Good morning, members and those joining us remotely. Over the past few months, we've had other matters in the spotlight. So I'd like to get back to recognizing retired Port Authority employees who have passed away since February. Meredith McKalen, Valerie Shumsky, Charles Banachowski, Russell Daly, Robert Cross, Leon Rode, Arthur Chess, Forrest Gilbert, John Lytle, Dewey Altman Sr., Donald Campbell, Herman Zellers, Thomas Milvahill, Donald Rastari, Albert Fiorentini, Frank Moddett Jr., Joseph McIntyre, Ramond Jack, John McLaughlin, Harry Logan, John Fate, Mark Ventrone, James Ross, Robert Marcus, Laverne Brown, Royce Liesel, Norman Garrow. We have a moment of silence for these former Port Authority family members. Thank you. Today, our board will consider the 2021 operating and capital budget. The corona pandemic has placed an extreme burden and caused uncertainty throughout the public transit industry. And our priority in the upcoming fiscal year is to maintain our current service, provide a safe environment for our employees and our customers, and protect our system in every way possible. The $485.7 million operating budget represents a 5% increase in spending over last year, primarily due to higher wages and salaries and pensions and benefits. Now, we understand that our funding will be changing throughout the year. The economy is in flux. A lot of things are going on. We are seeing far fewer passengers riding still, and our fare revenue is down. So we are adopting this budget and will chart back against it the funds which we are using from the CARES Act to reimburse our COVID expenses. CARES Act covers funding directly related to the COVID pandemic, and we will be displaying this to the extent that we can show this on our website as we go through this funding. COVID-related increases in spending also are there for increased sanitation and overtime for disinfecting every vehicle and all of our stations on a daily basis. Our capital budget proposed is $131.2 million. The capital funding remains steady. We anticipate using $22 million for debt service, $21 million for new clean diesel buses, $29 million on fixed guideway, rail, and bus improvements, putting $32 million toward our bus rapid transit project, and $18.5 million toward bus and rail facility improvements. If we do not receive this anticipated funding, we will prioritize safety-related projects first and foremost, and they will get done in this capital budget. We are currently preparing what is likely to be the first of many CARES Act invoices. To the extent that we're able to, we will make these invoices available on our website. And to be sure, this has been an astounding year. I think that's the most generous term we can use. It's challenged all of us, personally and professionally, and it promises to change our futures. To all of my fellow employees, I want to say thank you. Whether you have been at the divisions, whether you've been working from home, whether you have been watching out for your family and taking care of others, you have been making sure that we provide this critical service to our frontline workers and keep Allegheny County moving. I often say that we make life happen in Allegheny County, and that's not an understatement. That's what we've been doing for the past 3 months. So thank you to everybody on our team. These past months have been incredibly stressful and draining for all of us, and I'm proud of the work that Port Authority has done under such challenging circumstances. And then in the past few weeks, our spotlight has shifted. We stand against racism, not just as Port Authority employees, but as individuals. We stand against racism in all forms and stand with people asking to address the systemic problems which have perpetuated racism, inequity, and barriers in our country in the past 10, 20, and 400 years. To stand against racism requires more than thoughts and prayers or listen and learn. It requires concrete action. In the past few years, Port Authority has made some strides in being a better community partner, and I'd like to share some of those highlights today. Our diversity hiring rate has improved from 57% in 2018 to 59% in 2019. Our diversity promotion rate has increased from 37% in 2018 to 52% in 2019. All of our interview panels now include at least one diversity interviewer, and all of our candidate pools are going past the Rooney role to what I call the Richards role. All of our panels include at least one person of color and one woman in candidate, and not a twofer. There are at least 2 people on these panels coming in and reviewing with us. If the candidates we're bringing in don't match these criteria, then clearly we need to review our job descriptions and go back out on the market. We've also expanded the number of outlets used to advertise job opportunities to minority audiences, and we've been advertising these opportunities to the New Pittsburgh Courier for nearly 2 decades. I'm very proud that in late 2018, under the guidance of our Chief Human Resource Officer, Inez Colon, we banned the box, and we also removed salary history from our employment applications. Asking for salary history often benchmarks a position against the person's history of earning, and this has a disproportionate impact on women and applicants of color. These changes have broadened out how we hire and have improved people's ability to get a good salary walking in the door. We reestablished the Pittsburgh chapter of the Conference of Minority Transportation Officials. It disbanded 10 years ago. Last fall, we held our first vendor day to highlight contracting opportunities coming up in the future and to match current and big vendors with smaller vendors who might not have participated and disadvantaged businesses. These are businesses owned by women, minorities, and other groups historically disadvantaged in business outreach. We had over 150 firms attend. Over a third of them were diversity employers. Our current system plan, the Next Transit Plan, had a minority participation, a DBE participation goal, I apologize, of nearly 30%. These are big changes for Port Authority. With our police department, we have adopted a community-oriented policing philosophy in March of 2019. It focuses on how we interact with riders, employees, and other members of the community every day. We also focus on intervention and prevention through problem solving and building collaborative partnerships with other patrons and employees. We've expanded, starting with our police department and going throughout the agency, more robust unconscious bias training. Our entire police department has received crisis awareness training, which teaches de-escalation techniques. About 90% of our police department has received a 40-hour training program for crisis intervention, and we're working to complete the training with the rest of our department. And again, all of our officers have received implicit bias training, and all new officers receive that. This is a start, but it's not enough. This represents industry best practices and what our senior team has identified as benchmarks. It's time for us to have a broader conversation, both internally and with our communities, of what an equitable Port Authority looks like in building a more equitable Allegheny County and our region. Our 2021 budget includes 68 positions for cleaning and disinfecting vehicles. It also includes our first ever Director of Diversity Inclusion and an additional position to support our DBE business opportunity. We're also pausing our strategic plan development, originally slated for completion in summer, so that we can chart as a team how Port Authority moves forward to be, again, the best employer and agency to make an equitable Pittsburgh happen. We know the critical role that Port Authority occupies, not just connecting people to opportunities, but as the employer of 2,600 folks here in Allegheny County. We've got a good start. It's time to spread our wings and get into bigger action. These are small steps forward, but they are steps, and small steps can lead to big change. Unless there's any questions, Mr. Chair, that concludes my remarks.
Thank you for those great remarks. Great report, Catherine. Are there any questions for Catherine?
No questions. Great report. Thanks, Catherine.
Thank you.
Thanks, Stephanie. Okay, with that, we will move on to the report of the Performance and Oversight Committee from the Chair, Michelle Zemanek. Michelle, you're on.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Good morning, everyone in the boardroom and all of those joining us virtually this morning. The Performance Oversight Committee met last week via WebEx, and I have 5 resolutions for your consideration this morning. The committee first reviewed 3 procurement items and determined the bids to be in accordance with the authority's procurement policies and procedures, the price is fair and reasonable, and the bidders to be responsible and the bids responsive. The Performance Oversight Committee recommends to award these bids listed in the resolution for the total amount of $718,147.20. My fellow members, I respectfully request the board approve this resolution.
Are there any questions? Stephanie, will you make that motion?
So moved.
Ann, can you second it?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries.
The next resolution seeks authorization to enter into 4th amendments to designated agreements with the University PAAC program and participants. As part of Port Authority's University's PAAC program, the authority entered into agreements with the University of Pittsburgh, Carnegie Mellon University, and Chatham University. The Performance Oversight Committee recommends extending agreements for 1 additional year for each university. The University of Pittsburgh agreement will extend through June 30th, 2021. The Carnegie Mellon University agreement will extend through July 31st, 2021. And the Chatham University agreement will extend through September 30th, 2021. My fellow members, I respectfully request the board to approve this resolution.
Jim, would you make that motion? Senator Brewster?
So moved.
Austin? Austin, would you second? Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries.
The next resolution seeks authorization to enter into agreements with a pool of firms for investigative services on an as-needed basis. The services would include assistance and support to the authority for its investigations of work-related and non-occupational injuries, illnesses, and liability claims. Based on the review and evaluation of the proposals submitted by CSI Corporate Security and Investigations Incorporated, Specialty Private Investigators Incorporated, JP Investigative Group Incorporated, Command Investigations LLC, and Giddings Private Investigations and Security Incorporated have been determined to be the highest rated proposals for the performance of these services. The Performance Oversight Committee recommends entering into an agreement with each of these firms for a total not to exceed amount of $200,000 for an initial 3-year term with the option to extend the term of the agreement an additional 2 years on the sole discretion of the authority. My fellow members, I respectfully request the board approve this resolution.
Lori, would you make that motion?
So moved.
John, could you second it?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries.
Before the Performance Oversight Committee reviews the next resolution seeking authorization to adopt and implement Port Authority's Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan, Mr. Burt Jennings, Chief Safety Officer, gave a presentation. He reported that the Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan establishes the requirements for implementing Port Authority's safety management system policies and practices and supports efficient and effective achievement of Port Authority's overall safety goals and objectives. Port Authority's safety management system is a formal, top-down, organization-wide approach to managing safety risk and assuring the effectiveness of transit agency safety risk mitigation. It includes systemic procedures, practices, and policies for managing risks and hazards. The safety management system offers a proactive method for managing safety that enables agencies to identify and resolve safety concerns and challenges before they result in incidents or accidents. The Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan has been reviewed and received preliminary approval of the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation's Rail Safety Review Program. The Performance Oversight Committee recommends that the plan attached as Exhibit A to the resolution be adopted and implemented. My fellow board members, I respectfully request the board to approve this resolution.
Jen, can you speak? Can you make that motion? Okay, Ann, would you second that?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries.
The final resolution seeks authorization to enter into an agreement to provide professional safety consulting and safety security management services on an as-needed basis. 3 proposals were received. The proposal submitted by K&G Safety Consulting Services has determined to be the highest rated proposal for the performance of services. The Performance Oversight Committee recommends entering into agreement with K&J Safety and Consulting Services Incorporated in amount to not exceed $860,000 for the initial 3-year period, with the option to extend the term of the agreement up to an additional 2 years at the sole discretion of the authority. My fellow members, I respectfully request that the board approve this resolution.
Austin, back to you. Will you make that motion?
So moved.
Okay, Stephanie, could you second it?
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
Do you hear me?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chair, that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Okay, with that, we'll move into the report of the Planning and Stakeholder Relations Committee from our chair, John Pegg. John, I actually have to tell you to unmute your phone. Can't hear you, John. There you go.
It's unmuted. It's muted, right? Okay, hold on. Sorry. All right, let me start again, I guess. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and fellow board members and stakeholders. The Planning and Stakeholders Relations Committee met last week. I have several updates that I would like to share with the board. 1, COVID-19 transit service recovery plans. First and foremost, we are concerned for the safety of our employees and our customers. It is critical that we are providing reliable service while planning for the unknown. So we've increased vehicle disinfecting, decreased ridership, provided adequate levels of service to essential workers, and service equity, having the ability to scale up or down as needed. Service and ridership. Allegheny County moved into the green phase on June 5th. Rapid routes are operating at a frequency of every 30 minutes or better. Bus ridership is starting to recover, but still 70% below the normal ridership. Rail ridership is slower to recovery and still 80% down from the normal ridership. Access ridership is also down 75% from its normal ridership. Recovery. Communicate with stakeholders. Analyze high-use stops for social distancing initiatives. Monitor ridership. We are tentatively planning to return to normal service levels on the routes with August 23rd service changes, pending more information from the universities. Number 2, planning project updates. Bus Rapid Transit Project, FTA announced that the $99.9 million, $95 million has been allocated to the federal budget and will be available when the Port Authority completes all of the required steps in project readiness. The planning and department received an FTA grant for $682,000 to support our transit-oriented community staff in planning for TOD and transit access improvements along the East Busway. The website for our long-range planning, Next Transit, launches this month. Station and park and ride improvements planning will begin for the Wilkinsburg Station, the Wilkinsburg Park and Ride, the Carnegie Station Park and Ride. Bus stop consolidation on hold pending identification of outreach plans. Shelter replacement project assumed after a temporary vendor shutdown, phase 3 is on track for September-October installation. Service development aims to provide a 7-day network comprised of local coverage and rapid routes in FY21 budget. Addition or extension of services proposed for 10 bus routes. Next steps, present the transit service standards to the board at the July meeting. After the transit service standards are adopted, Port Authority will be able to implement the proposed service additions. Provide a formal Title VI presentation to the Port Authority, to the Allegheny County Transit Council and the Port Authority Planning and Stakeholders Relations Committee. The Allegheny County Transit Council met earlier this week. They reviewed an overview of the proposed service changes for November and the proposed budget. They also held board elections. The Committee for Accessible Transportation did not meet in June. The next meeting is scheduled for August 6th at 5:30 p.m. It has not yet been decided if they will meet virtually or in person. Mr. Chairman, unless there are any questions, that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Are there any questions? Okay, great. Then with that, we'll move on to the report of the Finance Committee from Ann O'Gorick, our chair.
Good morning, Chair and fellow board members. The Finance Committee met on Thursday, June 18th. At the meetings, Chief Executive Officer Catherine Kellerman and Chief Financial Officer Peter Shank presented the final FY 2021 operating and capital budgets for consideration. Mr. Shank first thanked his dedicated finance department staff for their work during the 6-month budget process. CEO Kellerman continued to stress that despite COVID-19, the authority will continue to provide a safe environment for passengers and employees alike. Mr. Shank reported that the primary difference between the budget presented in May and the final June version was the addition of 10 employees to clean and sanitize our facilities. The FY 2021 operating budget has a total of 68 new positions dedicated to cleaning both vehicles and facilities. Mr. Shank reiterated that in order to simplify CARES Act invoicing, the FY 2021 operating budget is at pre-COVID-19 levels. Invoices will be the differential between budget and actual results on a monthly basis. Mr. Shank reported that due to the impact of COVID-19 on operations and ridership, staff is projecting a deficit of approximately $21 million, which is better than the year-end projection provided last month. Expense levels for April and May were below budget despite the increased expenses related to COVID-19 cleaning. Mr. Shank reported that the final 2021 operating budget contains minimal CARES Act funding as a placeholder to eventually offset reduced passenger fares and subsidies. The actual usage of CARES Act funding could potentially total tens of millions of dollars during the upcoming fiscal year. It was reported that the FY 2021 operating budget is balanced with $42.7 million in deferred revenue that is distinct from CARES Act funding. The final FY 2021 capital budget is based on receiving the $114.5 million in state funding, which assumes the continuation of Turnpike funding to PennDOT. Both Ms. Kellerman and Mr. Shank stressed that the operating and capital budgets may need to be reopened as further financial information becomes available. The Finance Committee recommends approving Port Authority's FY 2021 operating budget at a total of $485,661,889 and an FY 2021 capital budget totaling $131,191,888. My fellow members, I respectfully request the board approve this resolution.
Shall we make that motion?
I make a motion to approve, please.
Jessica, back to you for a second.
I second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries.
Next, Mr. Shank reported on the May financial statements. He reported that for the month of May, total operating income was $7.55 million under budget. For FY 2020, total operating income is $14.5 million below budget. Both results are directly due to lower ridership related to COVID-19. It was also reported that total expenses for the month were $3.7 million under budget, despite increased payroll expenses for vehicle cleanings and materials and supplies expenses related to these cleanings. Total expenses from a fiscal year-to-date perspective are $30.7 million below budget, which will assist in preserving CARES Act funding. Subsidy for the month of May was $18.35 million under budget, primarily due to lower operating subsidies of $8.1 million and deferred operating revenue of $11 million. The authority continues to work closely with Allegheny County on possible ways to mitigate a possible COVID-19 related shortfall in local operating subsidy. Total subsidy for the fiscal year is $9.9 million under budget. CARES Act funding will be utilized to mitigate the net shortfall of revenues plus subsidies less expense. Unless there are any other questions, that concludes my report.
Are there any questions? Great, thank you, Ann. Okay, with that, we'll move on to new business. Do any of the members have any new business to bring before the board? Okay, then we will move into public comment. A big difference from last month. Our first speaker is Loretta Gillespie from Bigburg. Just a reminder that our time limitations to stay within those. Loretta, you're on. Loretta? Okay, then in that case, we'll move on to our next speaker, Andrew Hussein. Andrew?
Yes, can you hear me?
We can.
All right. Good morning, board members. First of all, since Catherine was talking about diversity and equity, I applaud the authority on what they're continuing to do in the areas of diversity and equity. And furthermore, I applaud the Port Authority for considering service expansion, particularly weekend service on 10 routes proposed. However, with that, I would like to urge the Port Authority and the board to please consider adding the 78/P78 routing to the list of routes that are being considered for weekend service, as that route is also classified per the most recent service and should also therefore, because it's local service, get Saturday and Sunday service. Furthermore, I would also ask that they add the Y47 Curry Flyer route as well to the list of routes getting additional weekend service. That would only be adding Sunday service, and that route is also per the most recent route performance considered a local. So please consider adding those two routes, and I thank the board for its time.
Thank you, Andrew. Okay, that is all for our speakers. Our next regular meeting is scheduled for July 24th. And at this point, we'll stand adjourned. I wish everybody a very safe and healthy 4th of July holiday weekend. See you all
Yeah,
next month.
thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Thank you.